everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Happy Sunday. I'm excited to be back to bring you guys the astro weather for the week of March 22nd through the 29th, 2026. Obviously, we have got a blockbuster week that's going to be kind of taking place. I'm going to be taking you guys through all of the transits, putting a special emphasis on the key transit this week of Saturn in Aries, sextiling Pluto in Aquarius. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Click that bell button below. That way you get alerts as to when I have new videos. I'm always here on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays using tarot and astrology to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Equally, give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Consider sharing on your socials. If you're on X, follow me at BTV Astro and drop your rising sign below in the comments. Let me know how you guys are showing up this week for the change. All right, well, a couple headlines really quick. If you guys haven't seen them, we have the April 2026 horoscopes out. They are long and covering all of the major events that are taking place in April. This is where we really start 2026. We start to see 2026 take off in a very big way. As you guys are watching on Sunday, we're now in Aries season, so that means that it is the true astrological new year, and it is only getting brighter from here. I'm going to be here on Friday doing live astrology readings. We're going to be taking a peek at this up-and-coming full moon in the sign of Libra. I'll be here at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That's 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Always a good time to hang out and answer your guys' questions live. We'll post the the chat link for the live readings in the community tab. So you guys want to check that on Thursday or Friday when it goes live if you want to get in the queue for a reading. And if you guys want to book a personalized reading with me, or you want to learn tarot, astrology, or pick up a astro calendar, click the links below and head over to beyondtheveiltarot.com. All right, so we've got a lot of stuff taking place this week. The moon is going to be basically moving from Taurus through Gemini, Cancer, Leo, and then heading into Virgo at the week's end. We are going to be seeing a very significant transit that I think is well welcomed. And this is going to be the Saturn in Aries sextiling Pluto in Aquarius. We've got two heavy hitters. One wants change, one brings new structure. And guys, this is where we are going to start seeing our lives change in a very big way. Now I'm going to take you through the 12 rising signs at the end of the video, talk about what it means for you and how to make the most of this transit that we will be seeing off and on all year. Now with this sextile, it's taking place on March 28th. So you'll see this a little bit later in the week. And this is that kind of aspect that builds empires. This is about transforming systems. This is also about creating lasting change, new networks, and feeling a little bit more solid and structured within ourselves. Now, between March 22nd and March 29th, we're in this incredible window that's about structured transformations. So it's kind of like having this cosmic construction crew that comes through, and it's helping us build something that can last for decades. So if you guys are new here, make sure you guys follow along with some of these videos throughout the week. That way you guys can get all of the cosmic downloads. But let's talk about what's happening with this sextile. Well, the week kind of starts feeling like there is this productive intensity. We're going to have a lot of air and a lot of fire that's in the skies. We're also going to see that there's going to be the first quarter moon, which is going to be interesting to say the least, where that'll be taking place on the 25th. And that's really talking about nurturing what it is that we have to build. New kind of identities, new goals, new physical routines. And thankfully, Saturn and Pluto are kind of standing by saying, okay, let's make it solid, let's make it strong. So we're not just dreaming about change anymore, guys, okay? The last several years, since 2020, we've had a lot of sextiles that have been going on in aspects between Saturn and Neptune, Saturn and Pluto, that were taking place in water and earth signs. They were really slow, they were emotional, and it was also about things that were kind of concluding. Now we're starting to see a opening sextile, which means the world has changed. Networks, society, as well as the internet, and obviously all of our social groups. And it's really inspiring us, I think, with Saturn and Neptune and Aries to kind of pave a bold new way forward. So we're not dreaming about this change anymore. Change is in the air, and now we're going to start seeing it materialize in our own lives. And that's because with Saturn and Aries, we are implementing that change. We are becoming that change. So it's about with structure, with power, and with this kind of determination that has the capabilities of moving mountains. So whatever you start this week or complete this week has some pretty significant staying power. And this isn't a kind of like flash in the pan energy. This is almost like legacy building energy. Now we will see it take place on March 28th, 2026, but you're going to be feeling it all week long. And to some extent, we're going to see it really actually be an aspect several times throughout this year. Now, I don't know if it's going to be exact. I'll have to take a look at that, but it's going to be happening around 5 degrees of Aries and 5 degrees of Aquarius. So check your chart. See if you have anything between, I would say, 4 and 6 degrees of Aries or Aquarius, or the air and fire signs. This is going to be felt the most by those of you guys who are ruled by Saturn and Pluto. So my Scorpio risings, obviously my Capricorn risings, my Aquarius risings, obviously Aries and Aquarius, you guys are kind of like main stars in this as well. And you're going to be seeing it happening around the afternoon hours on the 28th, but Saturn and Pluto are very slow moving. So it's not just like a quick transit. It's something that's seeding something that will really play out all year long. Now, this is the very first sextile between Saturn and Pluto since they were conjunct back in Capricorn in 2020. So let's do a little bit of a rewind here, right? I know COVID PTSD, but in 2020, when we saw Saturn and Pluto in conjunction in the later degrees of Capricorn, that represented a totally different ballgame. It was where old structures, things that deal with government, companies, things that were connected to long-lasting leadership, obviously some power struggles. Now we are starting to see the full effects 6 years later of how things changed, especially with businesses, with jobs. Capricorn talks about our legacies. So now that we have kind of come out of COVID, this is the post-2020 period where now we're starting to see businesses changing. The positive is Saturn and Neptune in Aries means a lot of people are re-envisioning what their future career and legacy looks like. A lot of people are feeling incentivized to become self-sufficient, independent entrepreneurs, and being their own boss. The darker side of Saturn and Neptune in Aries is there are some people who feel lost or their job kind of landscape is changing. Obviously, developments with technology, AI, online systems. Now we're seeing that some jobs are being replaced. However, it's giving individuals to really dream big and think about what their place is in the world and what it is they want to achieve. Now, we also see that Pluto's in Aquarius, so 6 years of living on the internet, right? At least I feel like that. 6 years of also having the things that we need be brought directly to us. And it's also been this transformation that's kind of gone on with society, for better or for worse, as well as politics. So I want to say, all politics aside, really it's like the lesser of two evils. But what we're seeing right now in our lives, socially, economically, as well within, kind of the political world, this is the fallout of all of the decisions that were made 6 years ago. So it's had kind of like this unraveling effect. Obviously, that conjunction was intentional to tear down old systems. That was the conjunction. The sextile now builds the new ones. This is about new systems. This is also about new societies. This is going to be about community, networks, and independent people who are dreaming big for their future. Well, Saturn and Aries, it's here to stay, at least for the better part of the next 2 years. Obviously, this is a sign where Saturn is a little challenged because it typically finds more comfort in Capricorn or Aquarius. These are the signs that it's associated with. Aries is young, bold, right? Kind of daring and wanting to take risks. But Saturn is saying, be cautious, think about things before you actually initiate a new start. I think with the sun moving through Aries this week, it is exalted, so it is giving us a lot of individual willpower, the ability to stay strong, stay committed, and also focus on what our gut or our dreams are telling us, because it's going to meet with Neptune too. The positive side of Saturn and Aries is that this can teach us about disciplined leadership. And so out in the world, we can see brave new individuals, new businesses that are rising, people who are kind of bringing some structure into their life and inspiring the collective through the sextile with Pluto. We can also see that this is about structured independence, where we are starting to become aware of our own boundaries, our own needs, and also thinking for ourselves and how we want to make change in our own lives. a lot of that requires personal accountability and really committing to being a little bit more responsible, being a little bit more mature, and really taking cautious steps forward when it comes to these new cycles. This is also about building something from scratch. As an Aries moon, I'm always laughing at like Aries energy because we're really good at starting things. We're not the best at finishing things. And that's okay. This is about really figuring out how to take the first steps. We don't have to figure out the game plan or the end goal quite yet. We just have to kind of strike the match. Now, this is also pioneering energy, but with staying power, because obviously, well, this is a sign that is obviously about starting something, but Saturn is about building that foundation. Now, Pluto in Aquarius, on the other hand, we're definitely seeing the darker side of society, the darker side of the internet, where there's been political corruption, where there has been some kind of scary new technologies. But it's always been known when it goes through this sign to bring about revolutionary change for the people. So this is about transforming collective systems, and that collective change is going to be brought on by individuals, Aries, through the sextile. This is also about power to the people, revolutionary energy. It is about new technologies, new goals for the future, new systems, and it can be about death and rebirth of societal structures. So obviously we can see some people through the sextile going, oh my gosh, the world is changing. What am I going to do? That's very much the Saturn and Neptune side of things, where there's this push and pull energy where Aries is very foot on the gas pedal. Neptune is like, I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't know if I can do it. And Saturn's like, no, you keep going. It's like nose to the grindstone. So in the sextile, it's a 60-degree energy where the air and the fire are fueling each other. This basically means that we can see positive, productive transformation. It's also about overcoming some of our fears about the future and being a little bit more confident rather than being afraid or unwilling to bring about change. Change is non-negotiable now. You guys will start to see the changes in your own life that's pushing you towards a new identity or a new future. This is also about building systems that actually work, believe it or not. So don't buy into the doom and gloom of the sextile to Pluto. I think we're going to see a lot of new inventions. I think we're going to see a lot of individuals that are waking up, that are creating communities and focusing on solutions so that way independent people feel supported and not alone. This can be wonderful for leadership that actually serves the collective and revolutionary ideas that are going to be about practical structure. So this is change that can last if it's built right, if we take our time and we don't rush the process. So my predictions for this transit is that we're going to see massive collective change for everyone, even if you don't have a chart that's ruled by Pluto or Saturn, even if you don't have any planets in Aquarius or Aries. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the changes when it comes to political systems. We will likely see new forms of governance that's going to be emerging. That's about balancing freedom and also individual freedom with collective responsibility. So now individuals, Aries, have to play a role in changing and transforming society. We no longer get to sit back and watch Rome burn and then complain about it and go about our lives. That is over. We're not doing that anymore. Yes, certain situations will push us to the brink of being like, oh my gosh, the world is mad. What are we going to do? But Saturn's like, you show up. So for some people, it means they're going to get more involved in local communities, potentially even on online campaigns, things that are going to be waking people up and teaching them ways to be more involved and actually being a part of the change that they want to see in the world. We're also going to see big changes with technology. So continuation of breakthroughs and innovations that actually can serve and potentially even save humanity rather than just generating profit. We'll see major changes to economic systems too, like potentially alternative financial structures that can gain some pretty serious traction. Cryptocurrency, local currencies, or entire new economic models or tokenization are going to be hot terms over the summer. We're going to see social movements where activism becomes more so organized, and I also think it's going to be a lot more effective. One person can strike a match that can light up thousands, if not millions of people online. So where individual creators, photographers, artists, and pioneers are going to be calling on humanity to kind of wake up and work together. And I think it's going to be less protesting, more building actual alternative systems. This will also touch on humanitarian and environmental themes, more about solutions. So think like practical, scalable solutions for things that are going on, in the world. It's also going to be about finally seeing change and kind of getting the support that we need. And obviously lots of changes with leadership. New leaders are going to start emerging, and they're going to be championed by groups of individuals who may be online. So we're going to see individuals that are going to kind of rise suddenly, and they're going to get a lot of recognition for their visions and also what they're kind of talking about in terms of leadership for the future. Some of them are going to have bold new ideas, which can actually be great for humanity. Others are going to be a little questionable, and we're going to have to decide whether or not there's some ulterior motives. If they could be potentially a wolf in sheep's clothing, trying to lure the collective into something where they're going to lose their power or their control. So it can go one of two ways. I feel like we're going to see more that are going to be focusing on like those who want to serve rather than wanting to dominate, and those who really want to build rather than destroy. So when this sextile happens, they're both happening at 5 degrees. In degree astrology, 5s deal with celebrities. It's like Leo energy. So celebrities, leaders, it's going to be about drama. It's going to be about creativity, artists, as well as anything that deals with taking risks, anything that's connected to like gambling, things that are also kind of connected to children or younger people. And I find it hard to believe that we're not going to start hearing a lot of people talking about population decline. Because Aries is humanity, Saturn represents limitation, Neptune is like people aren't aware of the true kind of catastrophic effects down the road. And the sextile to Pluto can be about people kind of waking up and realizing that this can have some really heavy implications, especially as generations are getting older. Now, you will hear things like developments in technology where there's going to be solutions for individuals that will help us in the future, i.e. robots maybe that are helping taking care of elderly people, driving us around, handling tasks, as well as potentially making our lives easier. So it's not all doom and gloom. I do think that we may see that there is a lot of challenges for leadership, just having Saturn and Neptune in Aries, but the sextile to Pluto means that now leaders actually have to win over kind of like the populace. Like they have to be in a situation where groups are actually supporting them and rising up, helping rise them up. And if they're not getting the support or the recognition from collective groups, then it could be their downfall. So when we think about the degrees and that the Sabian symbols that are kind of coming up with this, I do think it's positive because this is going to be about self-expression, creativity, love affairs, and it's going to give a lot of people the opportunity to really focus in on what are their dreams? What do they want to create? How do they want to express themselves? How can we bring in more love and creativity? Now, both of these are going to be happening at 5. So we're going to read the 6 degrees of Aries and also Aquarius because that's where they're going to be taking place. So let's pull that up. All right. So 6 degrees of Aries is a square brightly lighted on one side. The keyword is set. So the theme is half of the story. The symbol speaks to the value of expression and the illusion of materialistic reality. The image of a square brightly lighted on one side alludes to the dawning of awareness or the early stages of insight, and it points to limitations and dangers of looking at only one side of the situation. There is an implication in the symbol of a primitive type of thinking where an individual believes that he is what possesses or what his worth is the sum total of the number of kinds of his possessions. He's unable to see the real value in his experience with the material or only able to use it to achieve his goals. At its highest, the symbol represents inner directedness, a knack for making creative use of material resources to achieve personal objectives. Watch for a tendency to give up rather than to struggle or to underestimate the power of self to overcome physical limitations. Today, the accent is on revelation. Something hidden may come to light or be exposed, or you may discover that you have been wrong about something. The emphasis is on the material and physical. Issues regarding ownership or possession or real personal property may take center stage today. Your greatest advantage lies in looking at both sides of an issue, listening to the whole story, then weighing the evidence carefully. If forced to choose between aesthetic and the practical today, go with the practical and what is sensible, pragmatic, and offers you utility. Guard against illusion or being fooled by appearances, jumping to conclusions or making decisions before you have all the facts that can lead to regret. A thing may not be what it seems to be. Stepping stones is concrete or one-sided thinking, drawing awareness, seeing half the picture, materialism, and physical experience. I can't get past the what you may, oh, hold on, what did it say? Something about owning something, primitive thinking, unable to see the real value and experience within the material, only able to use it to achieve his goals. What he possesses is his worth, or the total sum of everything. So I could see this as like the future of how people are looking at the value of what they own, right? So it could be things like, oh, I have this cryptocurrency, or I have this gold, or I have this house, but it's like, is it actually the value that you think? And there's definitely going to be some market chaos. Like with Uranus leaving Taurus, with both of these happening at a Leo degree, I also think it's going to be lots of politicking over like personal ownership rights. A lot of us can maybe buy a home, but do we actually own it? Like in a way, we're still paying property taxes, we're dying, with mortgages. We're also in a position where we never really truly own anything. So I think tokenization is going to kind of come up a lot with this, and individuals feeling a little disillusioned, thinking that they had something that was valuable, only realizing they have to kind of go through quite a few hoops in order to kind of get it. And it's asking us to keep an open mind and not just assume that, everything that's happening is real, and that there could be two sides of an equation. Aquarius could be politics. So it's trying to get us out of this two-party kind of frame of mind, and then start to actually realize, like, wait a second, there's some stuff going on behind the scenes where other people are kind of manipulating, decisions or anything that deals with like law or legality. And it's actually having a pretty challenging or negative impact on individuals. And individuals can be kind of lost and confused, like blaming certain politicians or certain sides, when in reality, they're the ones who are kind of taking it in the shorts. At least that's my opinion. So let's look at Aquarius 6. So they're going to be working together with these two. I would just assume that there's just going to be some drama over things that are just coming out that people are like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that was the case. And this is also important because this is about as high as Pluto is going to get this year. Pluto is going to get up to 5 degrees, and it's going to retrograde in May. So it's going to station retrograde at the Sabian symbol. Aquarius 6, a performer of a mystery play. So the theme is the drama of life. The symbol speaks to revelations and the role of the mind and as a translator and a mediator between man and his world. The image of a performer of a mystery play highlights the drama and universally understood mediums of expression. The emphasis here is on man's desire for spiritual truth and his attempts to comprehend the secrets or meaning of life purpose. On a practical level, the degree can indicate a baffling or perplexing messenger or situation or behavior that is difficult to understand. At its highest, the symbol represents a keen sensitivity to symbolism and the underlying significance of things. The ability to articulate meaning, watch for the inability to communicate clearly, or a tendency to exaggerate. The accent is on interpretation. You may see or hear something today that won't be fully understood until later. Your greatest advantage lies in paying attention to unusual happenings. Write down what you observe and see if you can make any connections to a change that might be coming in your life. Guard against dismissing what you don't understand as irrelevant or nonsense. Try not to be too practical. You may miss your cue to seize an important opportunity. Stepping stones is interpretation, translation, revelation, expression, mediation, messenger, nuance, diplomacy, secrets unveiled, and symbolism. Well, I mean, I guess we could just assume that with the sextiles at a 5, it's going to be about creative leadership, dropping clues and symbols and hints that there's about to be radical transformation that's happening for the masses. Maybe there's a little bit of like breadcrumbing because we're not able to kind of get the full picture, or perhaps people are expanding on what they, I guess, assume is going to happen. And people are going to be like, oh, that's crazy. It's either this or it's that. And we might find that like the truth is actually somewhere in the middle. And that we're going to see that these transformations of systems is not just systems. It's going to be a personal change because it's an Aries. So we have to keep an open mind about what that change looks like. And this is about, I think, change through creative action. And the square kind of lit up makes me think like, like those, like a set, right? I use the example of a set where you only see what's in the frame, but you don't see everything else that's going on around. right? So it could be like saying like the world is a play, right? This is about having that clear vision, but also there's a lot of illumination and seeing what needs to be kind of built into something for perfect clarity. And then when we think about the 6, where it talks about like the play that's kind of going on, you know, hidden power and acts and things that are happening through symbolic action, you know, ceremonial type of things, and change through ritual and intention. So together, right, through the sextile, they're working together to build something new with a clearer vision while honoring, I think, the deeper unseen forces that make transformation possible. So the key themes that you're going to see throughout this sextile this week is, I think, building for the ages. What we start focusing on building can actually last. So this is the week that you want to show up and you want to be tough. You want to work with the Sun, Saturn conjunction to commit to something, some new goal for yourself, getting physically active, going after your dreams, holding yourself accountable maybe. This is also about revolutionary structures. So that change can come with staying power. Watch for ways that you can orchestrate creative leadership. I think that this is about leading through authenticity with Aries and also having a solid vision. And watch for the system transformations. This is, once again, not just personal change, but the changes in how things work and impact us on an individual level. And this is also about powerful cooperation through the sextile, working with the cosmic forces rather than fighting the change and going against the grain. So I'd love to hear your guys' comments. Don't forget to drop me a comment below and let me know how you're seeing the Saturn-Pluto sextile playing out for you, especially if you're a chart that happens to be ruled by these signs, or if you're like an Aries or an Aquarius rising within the first 10 degrees. So let's get into what's happening for the week ahead. We're going to be starting with Sunday, March 22nd. Happy Sunday to my Sunday crew. Thank you guys so much for joining me and taking me with you to run your errands, go to the store, hang out with your family, work out, all that fun stuff. I hear so many cool stories, and I've gotten a lot of really great feedback and emails from you guys over the last like couple weeks. And to those of you guys who are watching on Spotify, nice to see you. Thanks for joining me. Obviously, we've got Moon in Taurus all day. So this is a day where we are going to be focusing more on Taurus-y things. The moon is in the waxing kind of crescent phase. So the moon is now getting bigger as we are heading into the first quarter square later in the week. Now, when the moon is in Taurus, we're focusing on things that are connected to pleasure, anything that deals with values, money, food, gardening, cooking, you know, all of that stuff, financial stuff too. And we've seen since Saturday that there's been some nice aspects between planets in Pisces and obviously the moon in Taurus. One thing you will catch is that the moon in Taurus is going to sextile Mars. So it does kind of allow us to really ground into rest and relaxation. Anything water related, anything that's connected to dreaming, spiritual practices, kind of kicking back and relaxing a little bit. Unfortunately, when the moon's gone through, you know, Taurus and Libra throughout this cycle, it is picking up on Venus that's in Aries. So unless you're an Aries or a Venus in Aries, this has definitely been a little bit of, what do I want? What do I need? What's going to make me happy? So love is a little bit more charged. It's a little bit more independent. It can be a little bit more action-packed, adventurous, with Venus going through a fire sign. But I think the moon sextile Mars is kind of nice. I also think that as the moon continues to go through Taurus, something that you guys are going to want to watch is that we are going to be seeing this sextile very early in the morning to Jupiter. So we've got, you know, Mars trine Jupiter, that's kind of fading. That actually was taking place on Saturday. But that big, expansive, kind of mystical, magical, motivated, at least emotionally and energetically. And, you know, that water trine is very emotional. It's very sensitive. It's very intuitive. And Jupiter in Cancer makes us have big feelings. So there is a way to kind of navigate maybe some of the transits that are going on where we can be a little bit more in tune with our emotions, but we feel more grounded with the moon in Taurus. Now, something you guys are going to notice, and it's really been kind of brewing really since Friday, because Friday is when we had the equinox here in the Northern Hemisphere. So it's the real astrological start of the year. The sun entered into Aries and it was immediately coming into conjunction with Neptune. And that actually happened very, very early this morning if you guys are watching on Sunday. So it's a weird way to kick off the Aries season because usually the sun exalted in Aries is like all systems go, you know? But with the conjunction to Neptune, it can mean that all of us are just kind of like a little weary, we're a little confused, we have lower energy. Wonderful time to be incorporating physical activity, Aries, and Neptune, which can be working out, listening to music. Maybe you are painting and listening to music. Maybe you are focusing on meditation and incorporating that as part of your kind of spiritual routine. Especially because this is the real new year. So if you're watching this now, we have to really focus on the vision, right, Neptune, before we can make the commitment that's going to come later in the week when the sun comes into conjunction with Saturn. The challenge here is that the sun, even though it's in its exalted sign, so it should manage better with the conjunction to Neptune and Saturn, is enclosed. Basically, it's trapped between Neptune, which can talk about water events, flooding, emotions, confusion, feeling lethargic, and Saturn, where we're feeling kind of limited, or we're in a situation where we feel like we can't move forward. So during, Sunday, even into Monday and Tuesday, the sun is trapped between these two planets. Not everybody's going to like it, basically. We can also see some really difficult situations that leaders are put in or individuals are put in where they're feeling like scared or concerned or worried about water events, emotions, sickness. And then Saturn can be things that are connected to, feeling confident, right? We kind of have that knack when planets are in Aries to be like, I've got this. But Neptune's kind of giving us a swift kick, and then we have to really buck up and we have to stay committed and stand firm as the sun's approaching a conjunction with Saturn. So with these two conjunct for a couple of days, if we don't know something, we sleep on it, right? We have to just meditate. We have to be more kind of in alignment with our spiritual practice physically. We have to stay grounded and also like keep our wits about us, because we can easily get bamboozled when planets are coming into conjunction with Neptune. So the Taurus moon has us grounded. It's grounded, visionary, Venusian energy. It can make us more calm, sensual, and focus on security, and also focus on feelings, while the Aries sun in conjunction to Neptune happening very early this morning, that conjunction is about kind of wrapping your identity up and trying to focus on the fresh starts that are going to come from inspiration, compassion, and maybe there is like a touch of, kind of fogginess, feeling a little bit more lazy or more dreamy with the conjunction with Neptune. Saturn will soon offer some kind of quiet responsibility. I have to tell you guys, like especially with Saturn and Aries, I'm seeing it in my life, I'm seeing it in the life of my clients. Karma's quick, right? And this is a very karmic week because we're going to see that sun in conjunction to Saturn. So it's really going to test us to see, are we ready for some of the challenges or the uphill battles that are going to be coming in the area of Aries in our chart? Check which house that is. That's where you're going to see the karmic stuff happening. To navigate Sunday, I would say lean into self-care rituals, right? Good food, nature, gentle movement, maybe some financial planning, although Venus in Aries is kind of like, and this is about grounding big dreams with practical steps. I would really encourage you guys, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, avoid escapism at all costs, okay? Because we're more prone when planets are conjunct Neptune to lean into self-sabotage, where we can play the victim, we can watch too much TV, we can drink too much, we can drug, we can be like, well, I'll do it later, because Aries says, no, you do it right now. And this stellium of planets in Aries, by the way, is all being ruled by Mars. So that tells me that there is a wave of something coming, especially in April, that's really going to affect individuals. And some of us feel it. We feel that the change is underway, but we don't see it until it crosses into Aries next month, and then it becomes more visible, and then it happens very quickly. So slowly and then all at once. We're still in the slowly phase. The all at once is coming. Come on, guys. Like Aries is war, conflict, anything that deals with military things. Obviously, with Neptune being there is fear of shortages. Saturn and Neptune is the gas shortages, the oil shortages. Go back to my videos. I was telling you guys two months ago at the beginning of the year, I was like, people are going to have a rude awakening once we get into the late March, early April, where they're going to start to see that the world events that we've been watching on TV, the things that we see on TikTok or the things that we see on social media where we're like, wow, that's crazy. Like, this is happening in this country and that's happening in this country, is about to come to a place near you. And I don't say that lightly. I'm not like a doom and gloom astrologer, But some of the things that we have been kind of third party, witness to from afar are now coming home front and center. And so it's so easy to overlook things and be like, it doesn't affect me. I don't live there. Or that's not my country, or that's not my state, or that's, not my identity. And then it will start impacting us individually. So my thought here is that this week, as the sun's coming into conjunction with Neptune, check in with your gut, man. Like if it's telling you, hey, you need to wrap this up in this area, or you need to kind of get this in order in that area, or maybe it would be smart to get a little bit more physically active. And I talked about this in one of my videos, I think it was like probably in the last year. I was saying when the eclipses were going through Aries, I remember looking at the eclipses being like, okay, in 2 years' time, when Saturn goes into Aries, it will become survival of the fittest. And that's really what inspired me to be like, okay, I want to be more physically active. I want to be better about also self-defense, anything that's kind of connected to, just being prepared and feeling a little bit more physically capable of being able to do my own thing and not feeling like I was going to be defeated. If you are still behind on some of that stuff, totally fine. But I'm going to tell you there's still time if you want to get into a fitness routine, if you're wanting to quit smoking, quit drinking, if you're wanting to be more regular with a spiritual practice or meditation. Mindfulness in action is very Saturn and Neptune in Aries. So I think that this is a wonderful time to get the show on the road. I would encourage you guys to navigate, Sunday, to just really feel like you can take those ideas, those dreams, and you can ground them, and you can do it with practical steps. Avoid the escapism, channel that into intuition, into setting realistic goals, and it's excellent for manifesting security or anything that deals with like artistic projects. Now, as the day goes on, you're going to see the kind of the entrapment of the sun between Neptune and Saturn. The moon will continue to move through Taurus, and you're not going to see it too heavily aspected. Okay, so going clear into the afternoon, nothing is really happening. So this is now going to take us into Monday, and what you will see is overnight, the moon will conjunct Uranus. So I'm thinking there could be some stuff going on over the weekend that could definitely shock and surprise people when it comes to the markets on Monday, when it comes to banking and institutions. And then we're going to see, as we're waking up on Monday morning, the moon is in Gemini. So very different vibe, a lot more inquisitive, chatty, social, and the moon's immediately going to form a trine with Pluto in Aquarius. So this is, Monday morning, I would say, if you have to travel, if you have to have a meeting, if you have to confirm appointments, if you need to be working on a writing project, a website, anything like that, early Monday morning is actually pretty decent. The communication is only going to decline towards the end of the day. And as the moon is in Gemini, it's picking up the energy of Mercury, which, by the way, is now direct. Hallelujah. No more Mercury retrograde. We are still in the Mercury post-shadow, though, so it's still a little hazy. And if you notice, Mercury is still in conjunction with the North Node. So dreams, intuition, secret information, things we uncover, stuff we're doing research about, or things we're looking for, still very important. And it's very emotional and intuitive because it's in a water sign. But I'm living for the North Node Mercury getting connected. I really love the moon trine Pluto, which is great for socializing, connecting, and sending emails, having meetings. And the moon in a sextile to Saturn also, and the sun. Okay, so it's really good communication in the morning. Now, as the day goes on, it's not going to be as pleasant, and that's because you're going to see the Gemini moon start coming into a trine with Pluto. So communication is best like 7 a.m. to about noon Central Time. And then once the moon starts squaring Mercury, which is its ruler, and also the North and South Node. This is all at an 8, by the way. I am predicting more travel chaos. And I've also been saying that for the last couple of weeks. I was like, dude, Mercury retrograde in Pisces, we're going to see that there's going to be lots of confusion and issues with airports and problems with communication and travel. It's getting kicked up around 5 p.m. Central Time. So as soon as that moon squares Mercury, we are not knowing how to connect what we're thinking about and how we're feeling very well. It's at odds, and this is about some kind of change to potential travel, contracts, or communication. And the moon's going to square its own nodes, which means there's going to be fateful events that are taking place. So the North Node and Mercury are ruled by Jupiter, We've got the South Node ruled by Mercury, and then we've got the Moon ruled by Mercury. So best believe there's going to be some uncomfortable conversations, travel, or some issues with change on Monday, like late afternoon, early evening. Now it's supportive. Obviously, we also see this kind of lingering, Mars-Jupiter trine, which I think is helpful, but we're starting to lose that. Overall, I would say Monday is very curious and chatty most of the day. There's a lot of like mental energy. And Gemini moon lightens things up, ideas can flow better, there's a connection spark, and with that Aries stellium, that's just gonna keep on keeping on through the sextile. I think it's really wonderful. It's gonna push us to be more active in communicating and taking some of these new steps forward, and we're writing things down, we're making phone calls, all of that stuff. So the daily vibe, I think, is really, the key here to navigate the day would be network. If you have to write something, call somebody. If you have to take a short trip or learn something new, get it done at some point earlier in the day, because as we get into the later afternoon, into the evening, it's gonna be a little tricky. The key here with mutable squares is that you have to stay flexible, you have to be versatile. Mutable squares are about change, things that are giving way. So you might get news, you might get an email, hey, your flight got delayed, right? Or hey, the plans changed. And I would say double check facts to avoid scattered energy with that moon square Mercury. Not the best time to have important conversations or meetings. People are gonna have mixed feelings. They may not even respond with Mercury at an 8. But it's a great day earlier in the day for brainstorming or kind of catching up with people if that's something that you need to do. Now, as the evening goes on, Mercury will start coming out of a square with the moon will start coming out of a square with Mercury and the nodes in the later evening, and things get a little bit easier. And that's going to take us into what's going to be Tuesday. So on Tuesday, the 24th, we wake up and the moon is still in Gemini, and it's going to be in Gemini all day. But we're catching some of those mutable squares again. Now the moon is going to come into a square with Mars, and Mars is connected to this Neptune, Sun, Saturn energy. So this means that some people are going to be hesitant, weary, fearful, unsure, feeling delayed, slowed down, agitated. And Mars in Pisces has this more intuitive flow, and it kind of comes and goes. And then Moon and Mercury is like trying to communicate, but it feels like people, like their brain fell out on the rug. Like you're going to find that you're having conversations with people on Wednesday and you're like, are you a real person talking to me right now? Like, what are you saying? And people are going to get frustrated because they're trying to call for customer service. They're trying to get somewhere. They're trying to do something, and they're feeling blocked. I attribute a lot of that to the fact that Mercury is in Pisces, and also that all of this, Aries energy is ruled by Mars that's in Pisces. It's almost like there are all of these delays that are agitating us. And maybe to be optimistic, the universe is rerouting us. Maybe it is delaying things for a reason, or maybe it's delaying certain conversations or movement or something that we're trying to do. And it pushes us to actually go, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna make this work. I'm gonna find my way through. I'm gonna kind of cut through the fog. So on the 24th, there will be also this frustration, but there's opportunity within that frustration. And you're going to see once the moon comes out of a square with Mars, which is very early in the morning on Tuesday, things get a little bit easier. So it's going to square around 9 a.m. Central Time. It's going to come out of the square. And then we start to see the moon sextiling Venus, and it's going to happen at a 22. So work, communications, kind of having solid ground, committing to something is going to be a little bit easier to do as you're getting into like 4, 5, 6 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday. I really think that there is still this very versatile, communicative, busy kind of vibe with the Gemini moon. It's expressive, and there's like a lot of mental buzz that's in the air. We could be focusing on things like information or short distance connections. They can feel very important. And I think we're just kind of prepping for what's about to come over the next couple of days, which is about emotional turning points. I love with the moon sextile Venus that this is a time where if you have to, place a phone call, connect with somebody, talk about relationships, talk about money, that kind of stuff, you can. It's going to be easier later in the day. I would say this is a good day to gather information, connect maybe with siblings, plan travel, go on a short distance trip. This is also a time where neighbors might be more prominent. Maybe journaling or kind of learning something can also be really helpful. Keep your options open on Tuesday. I would say just avoid overthinking, and like the moon Mercury, the moon Venus sextile can also promote gossip. So that can definitely happen as well. Use the Gemini energy to stay adaptable before the emotional shift that's going to happen when the moon goes into Cancer on Wednesday. Now, let me take you through the rest of Tuesday. You're not really going to see too many other aspects. I think the last aspect you're going to see is going to be the Gemini moon sextile Chiron. Great for talking about our feelings, getting it out in the open, and that's later in the evening. And then as we move into what will be Wednesday, the 25th, things get colorful. Now we have the moon going into Cancer, which is generally good because the moon's comfortable there. But the moon is hitting that 0 degrees point, and then we also have Saturn, Neptune, and the sun in Aries. So this will be the first quarter square. Wednesday is a completely different ball game. I feel like this is where there's going to be a bunch of things happening all at one time, especially if you're like a cardinal sign. So like Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, keep your wits about you. There's going to be several different fires that I think you're going to have to put out on Wednesday. When the moon goes into Cancer, we're more focused on home, family, emotions, security, and the past. So very early in the morning, moon enters into Cancer and immediately starts squaring Neptune. And so if Aries is the individual, the actions, the new beginnings, Cancer is like, well, how does it feel? How does it affect my home, my family? Where am I going to live? You know, what am I used to doing? And it's building into the first quarter square. So we just recently had a new moon in Pisces, anaretic degree. It was like 28 degrees and change. It was like the beginning of the end. It's like the last big kind of like Pisces energy that we have for a while. And what we see is when the sun comes into a square with the moon, this is that first kind of quarter check. We call it crisis in action, where we are now reassessing and reevaluating, well, what did we see during that new moon in Pisces? And how were our dreams and our visions, you know, now kind of getting checked? And can we feel like we can move through with some of those intentions? That's going to be happening sometime around like 1 p.m. Central Time. So that's when it's going to start building. It actually looks like it's going to happen at 5 degrees. So let me pop this forward. So first, the moon's going to square Neptune, which it can be a little confusing emotionally to connect and communicate around 8 a.m. Then you're going to see the moon square Saturn, which is going to be feeling a little emotionally stifled or blocked. And it is emotional, or it deals with home and family. That's around 1 p.m. And then you're going to see the sun and the moon square around like, looks like 2:30 to 3 o'clock p.m. So when the sun and the moon square, it's almost like our energy and our ego is in one place and like what we want to do. And it's very impulsive with Aries. And then we have the moon, which is more emotional. And if you look at this, the sun was actually conjunct Saturn very early in the morning on the 25th. So I didn't get to that yet, but the sun and Saturn will meet. This is a big deal because now we have Saturn staying in Aries. We have an exalted sun hitting Aries. I mean, guys, the stuff that you are going to start hearing about the housing market, I think is going to be unreal. The fact that Sun and Saturn are conjuncting means that leaders, individuals, you know, people who are tops of companies are going to have to start talking about the harsh reality, Saturn, Neptune, and Aries, of what's going on with homes. It's out of 4. Now, this could mean home countries. This could mean leaders of countries. This could also mean that there is some difficult trials. It's happening at 3 a.m. Central Time. So by the time that we're waking up, maybe we're kind of skating by, but I think it's been in the air really since like Sunday. And then you'll see the moon come into the square. Okay, so then it's going to hit it again, but it's going to be at a 5. So here we go. Moon square Neptune, confusion around 8 to 9 a.m. Moon square Saturn, which is going to happen around 1 p.m. And that's difficult emotions and blockages. And then the sun and the moon square at a 5. So it could be drama. And what's crazy is like the moon's in its home sign, so it's got strength. Sun is exalted in Aries, it's got strength. And the sun is in the more superior angle of the square. It's basically telling like the Cancer moon, get over your feelings, let's get the show on the road. So we're gonna feel squeezed a little bit here. Also, what you're gonna be seeing is this is the day that Saturn is gonna start coming into the sextile with Pluto, and then the sun is gonna sextile Pluto. Okay. So things are a little hairy and we kind of feel like everything's a bit discombobulated until the moon comes out of that square with the sun, which is going to be the late afternoon, kind of like dinner time hours on the 25th. So we're still on Wednesday. Well, what can I tell you guys? Emotional turning point, number one. This is the check-in. And this is just kind of like, okay, am I ready for this change? Am I being too impulsive? Am I being too rigid? Or do I know exactly what I have to do? And the other way of looking at this is that the quarter moon is creating this tension between your drive for independence through Aries and your need for emotional security in home, Cancer. Sun and Saturn conjuncting earlier in the morning too is really adding this layer of maturity and also realism. But then the sun comes into a sextile with Pluto, so it's bringing this quiet power and transformation in. To navigate, I think on Wednesday, it's about balancing your ambition with self-care and nurturing your roots while also taking disciplined steps forward towards your goals. So that means we have to do the hard stuff. And I've said this many, many, many times, but if you want to survive an Aries season, have a morning routine. Get up, meet the day, get something done. All the things you don't want to do it first thing in the morning. You don't want to clean the litter box, do it first thing in the morning. You don't want to work out, do it first thing in the morning. You don't want to fold your laundry, do it first thing in the morning. Get this stuff done. It's a week of personal accountability. If you do it, your spirit will rejoice. Even though you feel like, oh, it's taking me more time, or oh, this is, physically exhausting, or I don't want to do it. That Mars trine Jupiter, which we still kind of have, is actually going to have some really beneficial emotional kind of changes for us, which I think is good. I also think that this is a time where if we can commit to these long-term plans and set boundaries or handle family or home matters, we're releasing what is no longer sustainable. So it's powerful for building something that is real. Now, the moon's going to continue doing its thing. It's going to keep chugging along, and it will pick up in the evening a trine to the North Node in Pisces, so we're feeling more emotionally and intuitively aligned. And the moon will also come into a trine with Mercury, so communication and feeling a little bit, rested, I think is good. Maybe there's this sense of feeling like, hey, we got something done, we did something difficult today, and it's positive. The moon's going to keep moving through Cancer. This is now going to take us into the 26th, which is going to be Thursday, and it will be in Cancer all day long. So we've got kind of some sweet and salty aspects happening. Number one, the big transit is going to be Venus conjunct Chiron. So if you have anything, I would say 24, 25, 26 degrees of Aries, or the cardinal signs, you're going to feel the pinch. Obviously, we know Chiron is the wounded healer, so it's about healing our own wounds physically, emotionally, or spiritually. Venus is about what we open up to. So with Venus conjunct Chiron, we can heal something about our own relationship to self. We can become more aware of how we need to love ourselves and love ourselves some more. We can also tend to our wounds, heal relationship wounds. We can also see that there can be relational wounding, financial wounding. That can kind of come up as well because Venus is a bit debilitated in this sign. With that being said, the sweet stuff is the fact that we will see the moon coming into conjunction with Jupiter. So it feels joyous. It's about really expanding emotionally, feeling positive about some of the emotion, home, or family changes. And we're going to see that that moon is now coming into a trine with Mars. So we are emotionally motivated to get something done. I like it. I think that on Thursday, there is this like deep emotional processing with healing potential. And Venus meets that wounded healer in Aries, those old wounds around self-worth, maybe relationships, even independence surface for a release. But we have to be willing to, be courageous enough to do that, right? Healing, it takes time, it takes a process, and we have to be willing to open up to it. I think the Cancer moon is just keeping things a little bit more protective and a little bit more nurturing. Now, what you'll see is the moon-Jupiter conjunction is definitely making us quite either joyous or kind of sensitive in the morning. And you'll see that right around 7, 8 a.m. And then we're going to see the moon continue to pick up a trine with Mars, which will happen around 1 p.m. Central Time to about 2 p.m. is what it looks like, maybe even 3. And then Venus and Chiron are going to be conjuncting, and that's going to be right around 5, 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And it's in Aries, by the way, at 25 degrees. So it's at an Aries degree. So it could be about prominent women in the military, somebody who's like sacrificing themselves, or somebody who's willing to kind of, put themselves out there or put themselves out on a line. 26 degrees is a man pressed of more gifts than he can hold. Keyword is equipment. The theme is dynamo. The symbol speaks to exceptional talent and self-confidence. The image of a man possessed by more gifts than he can hold illustrates the concept of the Renaissance man, or a man for all seasons. The challenge in this symbol is learning when and where to set limits on the demands of others and how to avoid spreading the self too thin or trying to handle too many things at once. There is an inclination indicated here to try to be all things to all people, to go restless or bored when things slow down to a lull. There may be a tendency to overestimate how much one can handle at one time and to overburden the self with too many responsibilities or projects. The positive is, at its highest, it represents an extraordinary competency for talent, independence, and insatiable desire to explore and develop all of life's potential. Watch for obsessive compulsive behavior and flights of fancy and the inability to sit quiet alone in a room and relax. The accent is on excess and abundance. The indication here is that whatever the day brings, there will be plenty of it, perhaps too much. Activity is the byword. Your greatest advantage lies in capitalizing on your high levels of competency. Your talents and skills should be at their peak today. Stay focused on your own projects and goals. Guard against letting others unload their problems or responsibilities on you. Avoid overdoing, taking on more than you can handle. Learn to say no gracefully but firmly. So the stepping stones are abundance, excess, prosperity, richness, fruitfulness, and versatility, success, fortune, and blessings. That's cool. That's my point of fortune. So let's see what's going to happen here. I mean, I think like with Mars being there and the moon and Jupiter still kind of trining Mars, I think it could be about having just a lot of emotions that we have to process, you know, kind of feeling like we're just like taking so much on maybe. And obviously, you know, this is a day where if we can address vulnerabilities and if we can do that with compassion and bold healing, that's where the magic is. And that's what we're opening up to. So it's a great day for therapy, honest relationship talks, self-love rituals, healing through creative or physical action, forgiving yourself, right? Forgiving others, transformations that can feel tender, but also they can feel freeing. So we start to lose the trine right around the time of dinner time on Thursday. And then we're going to see the moon will then come into a square with Venus and Chiron. And that can make things feel even bigger, you know, some of the reactions of what's changing and transforming for ourselves or what we're opening up to and healing and how that's changing something, you know, on the home front. And then the moon's going to keep moving through Cancer overnight, which will take us into Friday. Now on Friday, when we wake up, the moon is at the late degrees of Cancer, and then it's going to be segueing into what will be Leo. So you're going to see it going into Leo around, you know, between 9 and 10 a.m. Central Time, totally different vibe. As soon as the moon goes into Leo, it's almost like now we start kicking things into overdrive and things are actually going to move much more quickly because we've got all these planets in Aries in a fire sign, the moon's in a fire sign. When the moon's in Leo, we're always focused on the sun. So there's something really interesting here because the moon going through Leo means that we're more bold, creative, and dynamic, right? And with that sun that's now broken away from Saturn and Neptune, we have now cut through the fog and now we're like full steam ahead. So we're feeling more enthusiastic, maybe we're feeling more confident, maybe we're feeling more independent. The only catch here is that there are some tricky aspects with the moon going through Leo. The moon will first trine Neptune, then it will trine Saturn, which is really great for committing to matters of the heart, committing to our creative goals, committing to love, romance, self-expression. And the moon will also trine the sun. These are all great trines. I mean, I think like Friday is going to be like a go, go, go type of day. The challenge is that the moon also has to oppose Pluto. So there's power struggles that'll kind of come up on Friday and there could be like fireworks. So the key aspect is this is when you're going to see the exact Saturn and Aries Sextile Pluto, which is already going to tell you that there was going to be some big changes with how leadership was playing out or how we're kind of navigating our own lives and kind of changing something about our future. But I think that we can see, yeah, some drama that can be playing out on the world stage. So it's going to be positive, really pretty much from the time that we wake up. So I would say once the moon goes into Leo, so you're looking at that like around 9:30 Central, and it's going to trine Neptune around 1 p.m. Then it's going to come into a trine with Saturn, and it's going to oppose Pluto. So 6 p.m. on Friday. And I always laugh because it's just like, of course, you know, the markets, the stock market is Leo. And this is when the stock market is closed. And it's going to oppose Pluto, which means there's going to be some world drama going on probably over the weekend when the banks are closed. So watch for that. The other thing is right after it comes out of the opposition, we're like, yeah, there can be some drama Friday night for sure. It'll start to separate from the opposition, and then it starts to trine the sun in Aries, which is around 10 p.m. So things lighten up a little bit. They get easier. But to some extent, there is just some drama. And like Leo is like what I love, what my talents are, what I enjoy doing, you know, my relationships, my romance, my hobbies, my kids, versus, you know, other people. With Pluto is like the doom and gloom, the drama online, the drama with friends. And so at least with the sun going into, at least with the moon going into Aries, with the moon going into Leo, it's feeding off of the sun in Aries, and it will trine. And I really want to focus on that because like there can be drama out in the background, but we can still have fun and get things done and be like in our own little world and be confident and really focusing on lighting things up. So the energy will shift on Friday. You guys are going to see it be more confident and heart-centered. The Saturn-Pluto sextile is very supportive and constructive. And like I've seen this just personally across the board with Aries is my goals, right? My vision for the future, what I'm doing. Don't get sucked into the doom and gloom tunnels in society, online, negative friends, you know, negative people who are around you that are like, oh, everything's like going to shit. What's the point? I would be like, that's not my reality. I don't choose that. What I'm choosing is joy, creativity, having fun. And like, yes, there's always going to be something going on, but it's not worth squashing some of the fun that can come up on Friday night. Lean into the sun and the moon trine also at a 7. I think that that's, if you're going out later on Friday, it can be good for like relationships and things that are more entertainment based and things that are exciting. We can also see that this is a time where we're seeing with Saturn and Pluto sextiling, this is where discipline and empowerment come together. So it's helping you build lasting structures and really reform whatever needs like updating. So on Friday, lead with your heart and creativity while making practical kind of strategic moves. Commit to goals that are going to be long-term, things that matter to you in the long term. And you have to look at where Aries and Aquarius is in your chart to kind of get the bigger picture. Celebrate the small wins. This is good for career steps, group projects, or potentially just stepping into your own personal power. Now, as the night goes on, the moon's going to keep moving through Leo. Now the sun is breaking away from Saturn, so it won't feel like such a serious next couple days. We then wake up on Saturday, the 28th, and the moon is going to be in Leo all day. We are going to start to see that the moon will be coming into eventually a square with Uranus and a trine with Venus. But the moon's rather unexpected. You're not really going to see too much that's going to be going on. So let's keep moving forward. Saturday. Okay, so we've got all that Aries cluster. Moon's not doing anything. No real big transits. Nothing's going to happen until like the overnight hours as the moon is starting to come into a square and a sextile. And that might even lead into Sunday morning. So it continues. Saturday is bold, expressive, playful. Being in the spotlight, creativity, romance, self-expression, it all flows very well. So like honestly with that moon, it's in a wide trine to Chiron and Venus, but that's going to be Saturday night into Sunday. I mean, it's a great day. I feel like people are going to be like, oh my gosh, it's warmer outside. I can get some sunshine. I can have some fun. I can go and do some activities. Nothing is coming up on my radar that is like really concerning on Saturday. So this is wonderful because the moon's not being kind of challenged. So we can focus on really channeling this energy in what's best for us. And I think that what you'll find is that this is just like a Friday and Saturday where you're like, I can shine, I can create, I can perform. We can spend time with loved ones. We can go on date nights. It's also about dramatic flair and self-expression and things just kind of flowing and like kicking back after what feels like it's been probably like a very either stressful or limiting week. So we'll be able to celebrate. I also think that I would just avoid, because when we see the moon in Leo, there could be ego battles. We can also see that, you know, if we channel that fire into something that's generous and fun activities like art, hobbies, and, you know, self-expression, we can have fun. And you may feel a little burnt out because there's so much fire in the sky that if you need to kind of rest and recharge, definitely consider doing that. But the moon's going to keep moving on Saturday night through Leo. And then it looks like overnight into the early morning hours, then it starts coming into a square with Uranus and also a trine with Venus. So that's also kind of like a double-edged sword. So Sunday morning, the 29th, first we're going to see the moon come into a square with Uranus around like between 11 and 12 Central Time, like 11 a.m. and 12 p.m. And look at this, 28, 28, 28. Like we've got planets at the late degrees. So it's going to trine Chiron in the morning, and then it's going to come into a square with Uranus and a trine with Venus, which is like, And that's going to be around midday on Sunday. When the moon squares Uranus, there's a lot of emotional instability. There can be some like emotional turbulence. We can see that there can be some friction, especially over Leo things, drama with kids, issues with love affairs. We can see that people are kind of acting out dramatically about some kind of financial change or physical change. But the moon trining Venus is considered to be pretty fortuitous. So both Venus and also the moon are very strongly tied to what's going on with this grab bag of planets that are moving through Pisces as well as Aries. So it's almost like people are going, on one hand, I'm ready for a change, and other people are like still kind of clinging on to things and they don't want to let go. Watch for some of that wacky energy. That's going to be midday on Sunday. I feel like it'll change though when the moon goes into Virgo, because it's going to be a very different energy. Leo is more bold, external. Virgo is more internal. It's going to be more about healing, cleaning, organizing, focusing on service. And it's going to now start highlighting Mercury, which is in Pisces. So it's almost like we're really winding down Sunday afternoon. We're kind of just like relaxing or kind of kicking back. Maybe it means that we're not feeling like we want to be super focused on going to work on Monday or getting things done. Obviously, Virgo is more detail oriented, and we're wrapping up some of the lessons having come out of the conjunctions that were in Aries earlier in the week. And now that moon is going to start in conjuncting Neptune, Saturn, and the sun. So Aries is very much about the body, and then the sixth house is very much about health and healing. So we could see a lot of people that are like, partied a little too hard this week, or like wasn't really great with staying committed. Now I got to get back on track. That could happen on Sunday. You guys might feel more creative in the morning, and that's going to give way midday when the moon shifts into Virgo to like more practical plans, things that are about maybe tidying up. It can also be more analytical energy, but because it's picking up Mercury and Pisces, we're like kind of confused or we're feeling lethargic. That Virgo moon is going to bring focus back to routines and health and service as we integrate this week's kind of bold kind of lessons. And I think with the moon hitting the south node, emotional clearing, detox, kind of feeling emotionally out of it. And with Mercury still in conjunction to the north node, we need rest, or we're feeling like we're losing our mind. So you guys be the judge. Let me know how you've been feeling with north node conjunct Pisces. I think to navigate Sunday, this is about later in the day. So let's say like anytime, mid-afternoon on, that we're shifting gears. We are now navigating what is healthy, what is going to get us ready for the next week in a more intuitive way. Some of us might feel like cleaning is relaxing. Some of us might feel like, you know what, I am ready to, do my meal prepping later in the day, going to the gym later in the day, confirming appointments. It could also mean some of you guys are like, actually, I've been working too much and now I'm really going to enjoy my downtime. You can choose to organize, tidy, and kind of plan ahead, or attend to anything that deals with wellness, and reflect on what you built this week. This is also great for helpful service, refining systems, things that feel rewarding. And also it's like a gentle close to the week as we prepare for the next cycle. Now, what you'll see is that later in the day, or I guess I should say the evening, the moon's going to start coming into conjunction with the south node, but it looks like that's actually happening overnight into the early morning of Monday. So we'll kind of get to that when we get to that. And next week, we're going to have Venus going into Taurus. So we're going to have some very different energy to work with. Full moon in Libra. I put that video out if you guys haven't seen it. It's going to be an interesting one. And yeah, I just feel like my astrologer hat is kind of really gnawing at me, and it's saying Aries is the body, Aries is the self. Virgo is health, it is the habits. people can feel like they are feeling under the weather this week. I don't like saying that, but it can definitely happen with Mars and Pisces. It can definitely happen with, Mercury conjunct the North Node. And believe it or not, it's not like all work out and eat your veggies. It's more, are you thinking about things too much? Are you constantly emotionally on overload? Are you not getting enough sleep? Are you not paying enough attention to your mental or your emotional health? Where do you have to have a little bit more trust or a little bit more faith? Because remember, a lot of this fear campaign, a lot of this fear porn that's out is to get everybody nervous on the edge of their seats, worried and thinking and assuming the world is going to end. And when we're doing that, we're vulnerable. And we have to be very careful with giving our power away this week with the Sun conjunct Neptune. We will buy into the fear campaign. We will say, okay, I'll give this up. I surrender this, and it can be good if we're letting things go that we know aren't good for us. But I would say this is a week to show up. Remember that the universe is going to handle the details. Do not allow yourself to get scared and surrender in any way, shape, or form. A lot of this is about quiet power, and Pisces and this retrograde and everything that's been going through Pisces is about preparing the spirit for some of the physical change that's going to happen next month. Okay? So with that being said, let's get into how this Saturn-Pluto sextile is going to be impacting the 12 rising signs. It'll be happening at 5 degrees, okay? So if you have anything 4, 5, 6 degrees of Aries or Aquarius, you guys are kind of like main players, especially if those are your rising signs. Otherwise, if you happen to be a Scorpio rising, a Capricorn rising, an Aquarius rising, you're going to be feeling the effects of this because your planetary rulers are kind of in the mix. But I think it's going to be beneficial for everybody, honestly. So I like to practice Western astrology, although I'm sure many of you guys have figured that out by now. And I'm going to be showing this to you from the perspective of the whole rising sign system. Now, if you're a Placidus user, totally cool. Just see where you have 5 degrees in your chart. And you guys can be taking a look at that depending on which rising sign kind of associates with you best, especially if you have like intercepted houses or stuff, or if you're a later degree sign, you might have to listen to one sign over. With that being said, we're going to start first with my Aries and my Aries risings. Oh, and one other thing, listen to your rising sign. It's going to tell you where in your life this is going to be kind of playing out. Listen to your sun sign to see how this is impacting you in terms of your career and your joy and creativity. Listen to your moon sign to see how this is going to be impacting you emotionally. But you have to listen to a little bit of all three to kind of get the bigger picture. All right, Aries and Aries risings. Obviously, you guys are giving main character energy this week. How are you guys feeling? You guys feeling a little bit better? You'll feel even more so, I think, when Mars gets into your sign. But right now, we've got Saturn in your sign, sextiling Pluto in Aquarius. Now, Saturn rules your career, your status, and your reputation. It also rules your community and your goals. Pluto represents change, both change in terms of intimacy, joint finances, how you're embracing, letting go, kind of like resetting, shedding old skin. This is definitely a week of weeks for you guys. This is going to be one of the peak energies this year with this cluster of planets that are moving through your first house. And so, yes, it's like baptism by fire. But I think that this is actually quite beneficial for you guys because you also see the sun that's in the mix and it's sextiling Pluto. So you can be saying yes to new creative projects. You can be saying yes to new romance, to things that involve having fun, being happy, choosing joy. And when you see the sextile between the first house of self and the 11th house, which is going to be dealing with friends, networks, communities, your social life, you are single-handedly building something revolutionary, but you must commit to that. You must be acting in it every day. You also are going to see that your identity and also your hopes for the future are aligning if you are getting up in the morning and you're setting those intentions, if you're getting in the vibration of that change, if you're surrounding yourself by powerful, influential people, social groups, friends, networking events that are going to help you get this rolling. I think that everything's going to align perfectly. It will take time. Saturn is going to take time to start to see it come to fruition. I also think that this is about a personal transformation that serves collective transformation. I said in 2026, there were going to be several signs that were going to be basically the archetypes for the leaders of change. One, Aquarius, because Pluto's in your sign. You're sick of everybody's shit. So you're like, something's got to change. Aries, because you guys are the ones who are waking up individually and leading the charge, starting the groups, bringing people together, having that new perspective for the world. And Gemini, because Gemini is going to be the connector. It's going to be the people who are going to be moving and shaking, coming up with new apps, new ideas, new ways to learn, travel, and communicate. Together, you guys are the three amigos, because you guys are all sextiling or trining one another. So these are the really powerful signs that are going to be kind of leading the charge. I think that this is beautiful for you. I know it's a two-part act. I know that we're going to have this, and then you're going to have the new moon, and then you're going to have Mars going through your sign. But be bold, Aries, because this is going to be a week where you're really committing to your dreams. All right, we're going to move to Taurus and Taurus risings. What's up, Taurus? You guys are going to be seeing Saturn in Aries in your 12th house, sextiling Pluto and Aquarius in your 10th. Now, for you guys, it's a little more subtle. It's a little bit more behind the scenes. Saturn is connected to your career, your identity, and also anything that deals with travel, your belief systems, and learning. Obviously, Pluto is in your 10th house, transforming your career and your status, and it's connected to your 7th house of relationships. So whether it's your relationship status, your work status, your relationship with bosses, your identity out in the world, I think that they're working together. And a lot of my Taurus and Taurus risings, I've had to say this month, you know, it's really about kicking back and watching the magic unfold. And maybe some of the work that you guys have been doing behind the scenes is now starting to pay off. Now you're starting to see the positive changes in your career. The 12th house is a culmination house, and it's things that we are wrapping up and we're kind of releasing and we're coming to terms with. Saturn's not harassing you guys, okay? It cannot see your ascendant. So on one hand, it's positive because hidden work that you've been working on or you're working on will start to pay off publicly. What you've been developing behind the scenes can now start to gain recognition and build when it comes to structure. Your career is getting a spiritual makeover. It does require you to be aware of your blind spots, Taurus. Aries is your blind spots. So this means that even though Taurus risings have this kind of like reputation for, you know, being these like little goddesses that lay around and they're all about, you know, being one with the forest and being kind of crunchy and easygoing and focusing on pleasure. Your shadow self is Aries, which is actually, you guys are workaholics. Actually, you guys have a lot of energy. You just don't always tap into it. There's a lot of independence. There's a lot of self-assertiveness. And this is a good shadow quality to have. This means that you guys can actually get a lot of work done if you're working independently. So that all that work that you've been building, all those things that you're also willing to part ways with, to let go of, and also it's about resting after you've put so much work into some stuff, is well received. I think a lot of my Taurus and Taurus risings are going to be like, yes, I'm going on vacation, I'm taking a break, or I'm going on sabbatical, or I'm going on a retreat, or, you know, I'm just getting some downtime. And if you don't use that energy, the energy uses you. So something to think about is Venus is coming into conjunction with Chiron this week. It's going to be in your 12th house. So it will put you down if you are not taking time off, if you are not resting. And it will also put you in positions where you feel isolated, you feel alone. You have to ask yourself, what do I do with this? Is it necessary for me to take a step back and really turn within and learn how to maybe feel re-inspired so that way you can have a different perspective about the work that you're doing? I definitely think that that's part of the process, Taurus. So let me know what happens. For my Geminis and my Gemini risings, you guys are going to be seeing that there is going to be a sextile between Pluto and Aquarius and Saturn in Aries, between your 11th house of friends, networks, allies, and your 9th house of travel, beliefs, and education. Much easier for you guys, obviously. I mean, I know you're just recovering from the Mercury retrograde, but very much connected to socializing, very much connected to your community and also your beliefs, working together to create change. Now, maybe your focus is going to be on teaching, publishing, sharing your truth in some way. It kind of transforms your social network. Maybe you're feeling more independent. You're willing to get out there. You're willing to meet people, making new friends, showing up for friends who might need you. It can also involve travel in some capacity. And maybe you're meeting with groups and you're learning something, or you're going somewhere with friends. This is where your community and your responsibility with Saturn being there to your community is shifting something about the way that you see the world. Obviously, Pluto deals with health, work, and habits, and then Saturn is connected to travel and changes with your career. I've seen a lot of my Gemini and Gemini risings that are like, man, I've been in and out of a job. I understand. I've seen it with the retrogrades in your chart. But I do think that if you're in that situation where you're looking for a job, I would say joining professional associations, going to networking events, putting yourself out there, throwing your hat in the ring, contacting some people who might be in high places that can help you as you go through this change can be beneficial. If all is well at work, then it might mean that you're having to really focus on some team building exercises. Perhaps maybe you're having to be a little bit more physically active with friends, or you're going the distance to be able to connect with friends and see them. But all of these are actually pretty favorable in your guys' chart. And I would just say show up for the networking events and see how your kind of perspective starts to change. Good luck, Gemini. Cancer and Cancer rising, you guys are going to be seeing Pluto and Aquarius in your 8th house of joint resources, other people's money, psychological change, is sextiling Saturn in Capricorn in your 10th house. Especially this week, if you happen to be like 0 to 10 degrees of Cancer, the heat is on. Between the first quarter square in your sign, between the planets that are all clustered in your 10th house, but I think it's great. I think the sun coming into conjunction with Saturn for a lot of Cancer and Cancer risings can materialize as starting a new job, taking on more responsibility, getting more recognition, making more money, finally starting to hit your stride, although you're going to work for it. The sex house between Saturn and Pluto is interesting because Saturn rules your relationships and also joint assets, while Pluto is connected to creativity and anything that deals with romantic partners, children, or potentially anything revolving around your love life. So some of you guys might be stepping out going, I'm entering into a new relationship, or I'm launching my own business, or I'm becoming a parent, or I have more responsibility in some way when it comes to your identity. And I've seen a lot of Cancer risings that are launching businesses. I've seen a lot more that are changing direction. I'm seeing a lot of Cancer risings that are suddenly going in or out of relationships for the first time in a long time. So it really depends on your chart. But the career transformation is happening through this deep work that's happening with Pluto in your 8th. So your public life gets restructured through this profound interchange. You're clearing out fears of being creative, being independent, being seen. Maybe you're clearing out any hangups that you have with joint finances or any, kind of blockages when it comes to resources. And joint resources can also support your professional growth. So maybe you're investing in your own business, you're investing in a new idea. Maybe you've got funding in some way, or somebody is helping you build a company, or they're collaborating with you. And so your financial situation can change, and there in turn, then you're more willing to kind of show up and also do the work. Very big having Saturn go through your 10th house. I know it's difficult as it's squaring you by sign, but I'm going to tell you Saturn does very well in the 10th. So you'll look back probably 2 years from now when Saturn's getting ready to leave, and you're going to go, that's when things really started to heat up. Granted, some of you guys feel like your financial situation is putting kind of like a fire underneath you to kind of get the show on the road with changes with your career. But I think it's actually going to be quite wonderful for you guys, and you're going to see some long-lasting change in terms of how you look at your career and your financial security. Good luck. For my Leos and Leo risings, you guys are going to experience Pluto in Aquarius in your 7th house, also your opposite sign. Sextiling Saturn in Aries in your 9th house. Well, Saturn rules relationships, work, health, and habits. Pluto is connected to your home and anything that deals with your private life, your past, or your family. Definitely lots of change going on in terms of either relationships, legal matters, education, travel, really the list goes on. I have seen my fair share of Leo risings who are like, I'm going through dramatic changes in my relationships with Pluto in my 7th. There in turn, it's helping me shift the perspective that I have about what my life looks like, what I believe in, what I'm studying, where I'm traveling. And those changes in relationships are sparking a whole new adventure through your 9th house. I've also seen some people have positive changes in relationships where now they're talking about getting married, or maybe they're going to be traveling more with a partner. It really depends on your chart, but your beliefs when it comes to your partnerships are now starting to shift. And in many ways, it can be like that they're aligning. And this is about really creating something more meaningful. I think this is also about what you teach and who you're kind of with, both evolve together. The 9th house can be connected to mentors and publishers as well, or anything that deals with gurus. So it's possible, like, if you're going through a lot of relationship challenges, you're looking for, a relationship coach, or you're looking for a couples therapist. It could also mean that you and your partner are discussing whether or not you want to make a change in your living situation because of the sextile to Pluto. So if a spouse is saying, hey, you know what, I'm equally not wanting to stay here, let's go on a trip, let's kind of adventure a little bit, let's talk about where we would like to travel if we potentially wanted to move. That could be something that could go on. Or if you're traveling, it could definitely divinely transform your existing relationships or help you meet a new person. Leo, lean into the Sun-Saturn conjunction this week. 2 is better than 1. You're also going to find that there are really important new teachers that are coming into your life, and they're going to teach you about yourself. It can also be, big accomplishments like graduations or going back to school or getting like a certification. And that can be through the help or support of like a job coach or even an astrologer with the sextile to Pluto in your 7th house. Good luck. I hope you guys enjoy that one. Very karmic week for you guys. All right, Virgo and Virgo rising. You guys are going to see Pluto and Aquarius in your house of health, habits, and work, sextiling Saturn and Aries in your house of joint finances, other people's money, and intimacy. Well, Pluto deals with the 3rd house, communication, contracts, siblings, vehicles. And it also is tying in Saturn, which rules children, romance, and relationships, as well as the 6th house of health, habits, and service. So seeing these two sextile each other in the 6th and the 8th house is very much about your habits, whether that's how you're working, what you're eating, how you're working out, your organization, and how that actually impacts in a positive way your psychological health, your reproductive health, your financial health, your budgeting, your taxes, all of that stuff. And so when you see these two that are sextiling each other, I think for my Virgo risings, it can be about deep transformations within the self, Aries, that is actually really improving your daily health, Pluto in the 6th. Now, it can be things like you clean out your office, you do a deep clean. It could be also things like you're doing research on health or on habits, or you're going to therapy, or maybe you're starting to notice all these like little things that are becoming habits in your life, and you're like, why do I do that? What do I need to change? Regular fitness, staying on top of your schedule, managing some of your mental habits can actually provide profound change within yourself. I think for a lot of you guys, your work and your health practices get revolutionized through this profound inner change that's going to be happening. And it's subtle, but it is definitely happening. You guys are going to see that, especially as the moon is going through Virgo this week. It will be connecting with the South Node, and it's going to create a quincunx to Saturn and Neptune, as well as Pluto. So it's going to be saying, hey, it's okay to have that emotional release. It's okay to not have to constantly lean on certain habits. Maybe it's about getting to the root of the matter and kind of dealing with it head on. And you might surprise yourself with some of the changes that ultimately kind of come up. So I think it's going to be wonderful, but very subtle for my Virgo and my Virgo risings. All right, and then finally we've got the Libras and the Libra risings. So we're halfway through now. Libra, this is definitely a big one for you because you've got a ton of planets that are moving through your 7th house this week. So there's a lot of like charged relationship energy. You also see the sextile between Pluto in your 5th house of Aquarius and Saturn in your 7th house of relationships. Saturn rules your home. It also rules children, romance, and creativity. Pluto is connected to money, resources, values, and your personal self-esteem. So when we see a sextile from the 5th house to the 7th house, it's very relational, Libra. It's very relational. The 5th house is about joy, creativity, dating, romance, and children. Falling in love, 5th house, right? Expressing joy. And then we've got the 7th house, which is about commitment. It's about marriage, partnerships, clients, business partners, legal dealings, all of that stuff. So Libra, you'll see that this is about relationships and creativity. Where you can do your best relating through getting out of the box and being creative. It also means that, this is about combining these two for powerful results. Partnerships can very much support you right now. You may feel like it's challenging. You might feel like partners are calling you on your stuff. You might feel like there is a little bit more confrontation that there needs to be. But I think that it can actually support your joy and your happiness. If you're a Libra or Libra rising, that's like, man, I really want to meet somebody. I really want to fall in love, or I want to have kids. I want to have a family. you can be finding people who are showing up that want to do those things, that are more committed to those things. You can also find that if you're wanting to launch businesses, have creative projects, partners can support that. They can come in and they can also say, hey, let's work together, let's collaborate. Easier said than done maybe with some of the oppositions. I do recognize that this week you're going to see quite a few planets hitting Saturn and Neptune, and some of you guys feel burnt out on relationships. Some of you guys are coming out of relationships, and Venus is going to come into conjunction with Chiron. So I think a lot of Libra and Libra risings are going to find renewed kind of romance in relationships that are existing, and that there is more action in relationships and there's forgiveness. For those of you guys who are single, I do think that this is a time where if you are willing to transform something about your love life or dating or creating, it can actually really open the door to more serious commitment and personal joy within partnerships, and it can be quite amazing for you guys. So let me know what happens, Libra. All right, to my Scorpios and my Scorpio risings, it's not as obvious, but you guys are a main player in this. Obviously, Pluto rules your chart, so it is connected to you, your personal self, your embodiment, your focus on transformation, purging, renewing things. I would assume, like, since February, really the pressure is on to deal with a home or a family matter. Some of you guys have stuff going on with parents, others are wanting to move, others are wanting to remodel, and that's because that Aquarius eclipse really started the process of this in your 4th house. Now, I lead with that because Pluto is in this house, and you're going to have Pluto direct really only way up until like the beginning of May, and then it's going to retrograde. So you've got another month to make some really big changes and transformations when it comes to your inner world, your family, or your home. Now, Pluto is sextiling Saturn, and this is the ruler of your 3rd house of communication, moves, traveling, learning, siblings, and Saturn is also connected to your home. So Scorpio and Scorpio risings, I mean, I feel like it can really materialize a number of different ways. Just generally overall, your daily routine and also your home life are getting revolutionized. Your work area serves your family, or your family supports your work in new ways. It can also mean that if you're willing to transform your home, it's going to definitely change something about your job, your schedule, your health, your habits. Some of you guys are working from home. Others are working with a family business, taking care of family, taking care of pets, going into new types of work. Others are focusing, I think, on just organization, tidiness of your home, maintaining your schedule, all that jazz. I think that this is actually really wonderful for Scorpio and Scorpio risings, because you can now get your mind on board with committing to a new job or a new schedule or a new routine. It may be very new though, and you're trying to figure out how to work in the family time and also the balance. Some of you guys might feel like it's just more about emotional health and restructuring your emotional health. It really depends. I think that I would pay attention if I were a Scorpio rising, knowing that the sun's going to meet with Saturn. So a lot of you guys are either going to start new jobs this week, or there's going to be new health habit goals that are kind of forming. I would also pay attention because this is in preparation for when Mars comes into Aries next month. And a lot of you guys are going to suddenly start new jobs. You're going to suddenly start working out or go to the gym. And maybe this is going to be about just really feeling like you are going to be very active, especially in like a service-oriented field. But look forward to something dramatically transforming about your home as well as your job, because I think it's going to be beneficial for you guys really for the rest of the year. Good luck, my Scorpios. We've got Sag and Sag rising. You guys are going to see Saturn in Aries in your 5th house, sextiling Pluto and Aquarius in your 3rd. Obviously, pretty friendly as Aries trines you, Aquarius sextiles you. So especially if you're an early degree Sag or Sag rising, like the first 5 or 6 degrees, you're really going to enjoy this particular transit, I believe. Saturn deals with your money, resources, and stability, as well as movement, travel, communication, siblings, and learning. And then you've got Pluto, which is dealing with the 12th house, which is the subconscious. So as Pluto moves through your 3rd house, I think the biggest challenge for Sag risings is like confronting some of the issues with your frame of mind. And so negative thought patterning, maybe becoming too fixated on, sibling drama, neighbor drama, moving drama can really kind of grind your gears and wear you down. But having Saturn now in your 5th house which is connected very much to these two houses, is saying actually we can do something positive with our frame of mind. And this is going to be about transforming Pluto, how you think, how you communicate, how you move in a more creative, structured way, right? Fifth house. I could see, and I have seen for a lot of Sag and Sag rising, suddenly their frame of mind is changing because they're like, okay, I can have fun again. You know, I can go out there, I can meet people, I can date, I can express myself. There's new hobbies coming in. Some of you guys are launching businesses. Others are finding that it's about creative writing passions. Maybe it's about online dating. It can also mean that you're just having a little bit more of like a serious tone when it comes to dealing with your children. But creative expression and communication are now merging in a very powerful way. So really, like, the art of your voice now becomes a vehicle for some dramatic creative change. I love this for you guys. I really think that this is just so positive, and it may not feel positive at first having Saturn in your fifth house, but really Saturn throughout that transit taught me I have to make time for playtime. I have to create that, and I have to invest in that, especially for you guys with Saturn ruling your second house. So it may mean you're making an investment into matters of the heart, but it's going to help you when it comes to your mental mindset. And if you're doing anything on media, anything with writing, anything with blogging, if you're trying to start a local business, anything like that, I think would be really wonderful for you guys this week. And I think that it's also maybe about getting on some road trips and maybe having some fun or some like local community connections that you can have. So you're feeling a little bit more adventurous and a little less kind of tied down at home. Let me know what happens, Sag. That looks like a fun transit. For Capricorn and Capricorn rising, this is a biggie for you guys. You get a little bit of support here. Saturn is moving through Aries in your fourth house of home and family. So whether that's your parents, your home life, your emotions, your living situation, your private life, and Saturn rules you, and it also rules your money. Okay, and then we've got Pluto, which is transforming your resources through the help of friends, new financial goals, community. Well, you've got Pluto that's sextiling Saturn, which means that there is a powerful kind of transforming energy when it comes to your physical assets and your financial goals. And maybe you're reaching said goals because you are willing to make sacrifices, or you're willing to scale back or make some changes when it comes to your home and your living situation. I have this set up natally. I always try to give you guys feedback just where I can, but I'll tell you that my Pluto in the second house sextiling Saturn has been a lifesaver. It has taught me that, you know, if you really treat money appropriately, and if you start to focus less on things and more on experiences, and in your case, Pluto in Aquarius is freedom, that the sacrifices that you actually make at home will be worth it, because it will materialize for a lot of you guys who's going, okay, stayed in the smaller apartment for a year or 2 or 3, or moved back home, or sold my home, did something where I made a sacrifice, but it's going to give me more actually down the road, more freedom. That's how I want you guys to look at it. Things can feel very confining right now, and there can be a lot changing on the home front, but I actually feel like it's going to be smart for you guys in the long term with whatever's going on financially. Saturn also, I think, is going to be, you know, because you're the one making the sextile to Pluto, some of you guys might be buying your first home. You might be renovating a home. You might be taking care of a family situation or inheriting something. And Pluto is about your goals changing. And I feel like a lot of you guys are saying it's worth making this sacrifice or this change because you know that it's going to give you the power of freedom. And I think that's the key here. Watch for where your home and your values are starting to align to create more security. And also your emotional foundation is now supporting new ways of creating resources and wealth, i.e. some of you guys might go, I'm buying a house, or I'm building a house, and I'm also going to turn it into an Airbnb in the back, right? Or I'm moving into my parents' place so I can save money, so I can be able to invest in my business. These kinds of things can be things that you're doing that right now feels like a sacrifice, but I'm telling you, it's actually going to be really smart, especially when you start seeing in a number of years. I mean, this year, Uranus is going to trine Pluto, so that'll also dramatically change your money. And then down the road, when Saturn starts trining, a lot of you guys, I think, are going to be maybe owning your own businesses. You're going to have, you know, flexible kind of income. Look at the sacrifices as a positive thing, and be really focused on how you are getting structured when it comes to your non-negotiables at home. And you'll look back at this time and you'll be like, it was a lot of work to move by myself or get my own place or renovate myself, but it will be worth it in the long run. All right, Aquarius and Aquarius rising, you guys are one of the big players. How interesting how much Aquarius rising charts are getting lit up. It's just kind of mind-blowing. Not just the Pluto-Saturn sextile, where, you know, Pluto's in your sign. It represents this personal transformation, transforming something about your identity, your career, your appearance, is now supporting Saturn, your traditional ruler, in your third. Powerful words, much. A lot of activity maybe when it comes to writing, communicating, sharing, being active on online communities or even locally. I could see that communication and identity are working together to transform your world and potentially even your career. Now, your voice is becoming, I think, inseparable from who you are. And then I also think about how like Uranus is going to be going into Gemini soon, and you're going to see that kind of trine lingering this year as well. I mean, God, to be in Aquarius rising, to have some of the things that are going to happen in your charts where a lot of you guys are just going to go, I just want to get paid to talk for a living. I just want to, you know, focus on creating. I just want to focus on playing and sharing and like being authentic. Like, you guys are the major archetypes of what's going on, like in a very big way. I think that I would also just take into consideration this week, it's not just the Saturn-Pluto sextile. Saturn and the Sun are meeting. So there's going to be important negotiations, contracts, meetings of partners, you know, hard conversations maybe with siblings and neighbors or even partners, which is necessary because you're kind of creating or drawing that line in the sand where you're like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I need, and this is what has changed. Watch for some of those things. Be mindful that, you know, the things that you say this week are definitely going to really pack quite the punch. But I really love some of the sextiles and even the bisextiles that are going to be happening later in the year for you, because you have shed this old skin. And in doing so, now you have like the ability to really say and do really whatever it is that you want. Just be mindful that that can go both ways, that you have to wield those words very carefully, because Pluto can just as much empower you as it can turn you into the villain. So be mindful of that. Be mindful of like the advice and what you're kind of sharing with other people this week. But yeah, your guys' voices are definitely coming online. And for my Pisces and my Pisces risings, you guys are going to see that Pluto in Aquarius in your 12th house of the subconscious is sextiling Saturn in the sign of Aries in your natal second house. Now, you're also picking up a sextile to Neptune a little bit too, by the way. It's been kind of hanging around there, which, you know, you've had since last year. So a lot of it is just, wow, the world is changing, things are shifting. Maybe how you see the world is changing because Pluto rules kind of like your beliefs. Maybe also this is about, you know, studying, traveling, exploring, and like tapping into your subconscious. And in doing so, you're having the opportunity to be a little bit more cautious and conservative with where your time, your energy, and your money is going. Now, Saturn rules your 11th house of friends, goals, and allies, as well as your 12th house of the subconscious. So it's almost like there are things kind of in your subconscious or behind the scenes that are breaking down, they're changing, like they're purging. And that's helping you get a little bit more serious when it comes to your financial situation. Obviously, we know sometimes Saturn in the second house can first kind of feel like a drag, but it can also be something that can teach you the value of the dollar, the value of yourself. I would especially say with Saturn and Neptune kind of meeting there just a couple months ago. So values and spirituality combined, and they equate to what will be material results. What you believe in actually creates what you receive. So you guys are the ones that really need to be working overtime and reminding yourself that your vibration with Pluto in the 12th house sets the stage for what comes into your life, what you receive, what you build, what you create, what resources you have. Be careful with this, because Pluto in the 12th house, if you're constantly in doom and gloom zone and you're having this like lack mindset, it'll give you more of it. However, if you go, yes, the world's crazy, but I'm going to be super, super, super I think focused on being self-sufficient, independent. I can make something happen out of nothing. I can start something from scratch. I can do it my way. Then you're going to start to build resilience, and you're going to start to kind of quiet that voice that Pluto can give you that's kind of constantly naysaying things, and you're going to prove Pluto wrong. Then you're really going to start to learn the power, Pluto, of your subconscious and your mindset. If you think something enough, if you dream about something enough, if you watch something enough, it becomes reality. I would love to see you guys watching educational content, and whether that's about spiritual things or world events, or how to understand what's going on with the world economically, how to kind of financially kind of position yourself to be self-sufficient and also capable of being able to take care of yourself. Even learning about like anything financial related would be good, because that's the second house. But also, cooking food, learning about different cuisines, learning how to maybe preserve food or store food or things like that could also be beneficial, because Pluto in the 12th is kind of like a doomsdayer. So that might also interest you if you're looking for ways to be able to make your dollar stretch so you can have more meals, or you can be kind of budgeting things, or even sticking stuff in the freezer. Things like that could be really good as you guys go throughout this transit. And I'm looking forward to see what you guys make, what materially you guys are able to kind of come up with, because Pluto's scrappy. So it would be wonderful to raid your closets with Pluto in the 12th house and go, okay, there's a bunch of stuff in here that's nice stuff that I don't use. Let me sell it, Or it's about like recycling and turning what was somebody's junk into a treasure. So anything that could be renewable, reused, things like that are now factored into projects and things you can create, or maybe, recycling things or collecting things that can bring you some kind of substantial income is definitely the way to use this transit. So let me know what happens, Pisces. I hope it's a good one for you guys. Obviously, such a powerful kind of gangbusters week. I would say to really make the most of some of these energies, remember, build something long lasting. That's what Saturn wants you to do. Don't rush, take your time. You have to feel your way into the vision first, acknowledge that you're a little weary, and then continue to put your nose to the grindstone and persevere. Combine your individual gifts with other people. Share your vision, join online groups, connect with friends, and find ways to expand, because it's going to take more than one person to make some of these things a reality. This is also about taking leadership roles that can help you serve your community, or I guess the future, and structure whatever it is that you're building with some new out-of-the-box and revolutionary ideas. Work with power rather than against it. Watch out for some of the traps with Saturn and Pluto, though. Don't waste your energy on temporary pleasures. Don't allow yourself to fall into escapism type tendencies this week. Stay alert and transform everything that you can. Just take your time and lead with, I think, with other people that you're going to feel like are on your kind of wavelength. You may have to kind of seed out some bad apples in the bunch, or cut some friends from the team to really align and get serious with what your personal goals are. But those who are meant to stay will. And also, don't build anything unless you have the vision and the feelings first. We need to make sure we have the proper foundations to move forward. If you can do that, then you're definitely going to become the master builder this week. I do think that a lot of us are almost like cosmic construction workers that are having to help each other create something, not just for us, but for everyone and for future generations to come. And as we see this sextile take place, it's a chance really to truly build a new world, one that can truly honor and balance individual freedom with collective responsibility, one that transforms systems while also honoring what feels truly valuable from the past. So pay attention to what you're building this week. The universe is definitely investing in your success. Thank you guys so much for watching, for thumbs upping this video and liking it, for subscribing and supporting me. It means the world. I'm excited to constantly show up and give you guys these reports every week to help you get through your day-to-day. I know it's been kind of rocky out there, so hopefully this helps you guys align with where your head needs to be at and what we need to be doing. Please drop your rising signs. I'd love to hear how this sextile is playing out for you guys and what is materializing in your world. What new exciting things are on the horizon. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel so you can catch more of these videos. Obviously, I'm always here on Sundays with my astro weather sermons, but I have new reports on new moons, full moons, horoscopes, and all that jazz. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope it is an amazing week. And until next time, you guys stay tuned, and I will see all of you very soon. Take care.